All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to this chill vibe podcast. I'm John Kloss, and this is RJ Hunt. RJ, how you doing,
What's
man?
up, man? I'm good. I'm good. We got the Pistons back. The Lions won. Red Wings start this week. Life is good with me, man.
Dude, I'm telling you, Sunday, you had Lions football, you had Pistons basketball, and you had playoff baseball. Couldn't be happier, man. That was a good day.
Gotta love October. I even got to throw out a shout out to the WNBA too. They just had their finals start over the weekend. So yeah, October is the best time for sports, man.
I know basketball starting soon. I can't wait, man. That's obviously what we're going to talk about on this podcast. It has been a while, RJ, since we've talked about the Pistons, but every time we plan to do something, it's like there's just not a lot to talk about.
Right.
And now we actually have a game. Maybe it
Mhm.
could spur some topics for us. But yeah, I mean, anything new with you in particular over these last, I don't know, dull months of no NBA basketball?
Nah, man, nothing much new with me. Like I said, I'm just happy we finally got some more sports to enjoy. The summer months can be pretty, dull when it comes to sports, but now the fall is here. Fall means sports is back. Everything's at its peak. Like you said, football's in mid-season, hockey and basketball are starting up. Baseball's in the postseason. Like, no complaints now. Like, I'm ready to talk some Pistons, man. We finally got them back, and I'm excited.
Yeah, I wish I was more into hockey, honestly. Maybe I'll try to get more into it, but yeah, I
It's
don't know.
fun.
I've got enough space in my brain for baseball, basketball, and wrestling, and maybe eventually it'll open up for something else, but it hasn't happened yet. Yeah, let's just talk about the game. 130 to 126. They go into OT. Asar Thompson hits a three to tie it up. Where do you want to start, RJ? I'll let you. What do you got?
I mean, you left off with a source. I mean, so I do want to say this before I give all my takes and whatnot about the game. It was a preseason game. So with that being said, I try to keep my excitement or my disappointment to a minimum because again, it's just preseason. The guys are just trying to get some run out there. There's really not much to it. Some guys you pay attention to more than others, but like yeah, with that being said, Asar, based off what we've seen in summer league and then going into this first preseason game, he looks like that guy that does a little bit of everything, which I'm totally fine with. I love it. In fact, he got the start yesterday. I was in the camp of not starting him right off, the bat, but he got the start yesterday. He seemed fine. Like I said, he did a little bit of everything. He rebounded. He played D. He made passes. He made cuts to the basket. He even got some free throw line opportunities in there. And then I was a little, concerned about the shooting, but then he is the big shot to take it into OT. So I mean, hey, if nothing else, he's clutch. So yeah, the kid looks like he's, gonna be fine. I keep saying I've heard the comparisons of Draymond Green. Um, the guy that does a little bit of everything. I've personally said Tayshaun Prince as far as what as Pistons fans are familiar with. Tayshaun Prince was a guy known for doing, all a little bit of everything. So yeah, with Asar, that's what I'm looking at with him. Like he looks like that guy that brings a little bit of everything to the table, which I'm totally fine with.
Yeah, I mean, he played 39 minutes, was 3 of 9 from the field, 10 rebounds, 6 assists. I believe he had how many points? I think he had 12 points. Okay.
Yeah, he finished with
12
12.
points. Yeah, I mean, I kind of am expecting this from him. I mean, he's just like that all around. Nothing really surprised me about him,
Mm,
honestly. Like, obviously, he's not going to be playing 39 minutes, but we're going to talk about like the rotation. I think he's going to play a pretty big role on this bench.
definitely.
And I think definitely moving forward, once this trade deadline hits and the Pistons potentially move on from some veterans, I think he could play a bigger role. I don't think he's necessarily a starter night one. But yeah, nothing really surprised me about him. I mean, if you want to talk about what was really surprising, Marvin Bagley, which I'm out. I'm out on Marvin Bagley. I'll just say it. I'm out on Marvin Bagley. 22 minutes though, 10 of 14 from the field, hit a 3-pointer, had 25 points, 7 rebounds. But like you said, I don't know. It's preseason. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know. That's a debate we can have if we just want to go up and down the roster and do the performances. But I mean, he was the Pistons' leading scorer by a pretty decent margin. But in terms of Marvin Bagley, like, I don't think he's part of the core necessarily.
Nah, I don't see that from him either. I know when we got him, it was looking that way for a hot second. It was a lot of hopes, but now after having him for the last season and a half, I think we've had him now. It's just, yeah. I mean, again, going back to the whole preseason thing, a lot of people need to understand it's just preseason. It's not, it's just getting reps out there. Don't take it so serious. And so, as much as it was nice to see Marvin Bagley have a great game yesterday, I can't take that away from him, especially doing all his damage in the second half. That was impressive. But at the same time, I got to talk about what counts. And what counts is the regular season. And in the regular season, Marvin Bagley has shown he can have some great nights, he can have some bad nights. And like you said, you're out on him. I don't know if I want to go that far yet. Definitely say the money he's getting paid, he's hasn't seemed to earn it. He could still be a nice part of this team, maybe, but the battle between him and James Wiseman is far from over, and I don't think people realize that. Like, don't go off one preseason game. They still got the rest of this training camp and 3 more preseason games to prove who's gonna get those minutes once the regular season starts in the rotation.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's preseason. I'm not gonna go too in depth on it. Honestly, I don't really. I'm not gonna say I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I mean, diving into the stats and the numbers of the game, really, I don't think it's gonna does a whole lot. I mean, Jaden Ivey was 3 of 6 from three. There's something I think that's gonna be a
Yeah,
storyline to follow. Is his 3-point shot? Cade Cunningham 5 of 15. Again, I'm not looking too much into it. I think he looked fine. He had 6 assists, only 2 turnovers. I think what matters is he was just on the floor at this point.
exactly. He hasn't played in a year.
Yeah. And then the only other guy I would really even look to mention, I mean, Isaiah Stewart was 1 of 6 from three. Again,
Mm,
that's going to be a storyline to follow, his 3-point
mhm.
shooting. Jaden Ivey was, like I said, 3 of 6 from three. Oh no, I just mentioned Jaden Ivey. Killian
Yeah.
Hayes is who I wanted to mention. Killian
Okay.
Hayes, 21 minutes, 5 of 8, 7 assists, 5 steals, was a plus 14 in the game. I know this is going to be a reoccurring debate on the podcast. He's still my guy. I'm not giving up on him. We're gonna have the debate about who's gonna be the backup point guard. Killian Hayes looked good his first preseason game, and how much can you really take away from that? Probably not much, but he looked good. I'll leave it at that.
You know, uh, I'll be hard on Killian. You know this, and I'm sure those who listen are gonna get to know this. But yeah, I'm hard on Killian, and as much as I want to see him succeed out here, it's just I gotta be a realist at the same time. And his tenure in Detroit hasn't looked so great. I mean, he is the longest tenured player on the team, which I find crazy. But out of the guys on the team, he's the one that's just you don't get as much flashes out of him compared to the other guys. So that's some I just want to see more with Killian. But I will say I got to give credit where credit is due. He had a great game yesterday. He made some nice passes. He looked confident. When the Pistons went on that crazy run to take the game into overtime, he was the one I felt like that started leading the charge with Bagley along the way. But Killian played point for a good chunk of those minutes during the run to start it. So again, preseason, but if Killian did what he did yesterday in yesterday's preseason game, he does that in the regular season. I don't think anybody would have anything to complain about anymore.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're gonna have that debate about the backup point guard, but I don't know. Other than that, I mean, Devin Booker, we could talk about that. I guess I had a thought and I just lost it. Um, maybe it'll come back to me, but yeah. Oh, that was it. Killian Hayes, the longest tenured Piston, but isn't only like by like a half hour because technically he was drafted before Isaiah Stewart.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's yeah, he's the longest tenured Piston by like a half hour, which is
No,
kind of
literally, yeah, literally
yeah,
minutes.
that's kind of funny. But I don't know. We saw Devin Booker at the Lions game, and then we saw him. And I think he was repping. Was he on the bench? Right, he was
Yeah,
wearing. I
yeah.
know KD was wearing a hat too.
He had
Um,
a D hat with the Cabrera jersey on.
Yeah, so I was listening to another podcast about like I believe he's a free agent after this year, and then he's probably going to sign the extension like Bradley Beal did and get paid, and
Yeah.
then probably request a trade because the Phoenix Suns. I'm not a believer in the Phoenix Suns. I think this roster is not put together well. They don't have a true point guard. Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant just screams Brooklyn Nets 2.0 to me. I mean, they moved down from DeAndre Ayton for Yusuf Nurkic. I don't know if that's an upgrade, but like,
Probably not.
yeah, I think there's a real possibility, maybe not next offseason, but maybe the offseason after that, Devin Booker is going to become available via trade. But we have Jaden Ivey. Like, I don't know how realistic is Devin. I know we've talked about this before, but like realistically, how possible is it that he could actually become a Detroit Piston in, let's say, the next 2 or 3 years?
I don't see it. Not in the next 2 to 3 years. I don't see it happening. And then, I mean, I would love for it to happen, but I think he's gonna do. I think Devin Booker will play for the Pistons one day, but it's gonna be an out of prime Devin Booker. Sadly, I think he's just gonna come here just to say he played for home. Because I don't want to doubt. I do say he definitely wants to come home at some point. I definitely think he wants to be back, not in his hometown, but home area, whatnot. Like we always see him repping, like we just seen him yesterday repping the Tigers. We've seen him in Red Wings gear. Uh, he the day of your preseason game, you're at Ford Field. What like, and then you have a game to be at in like an hour. Like that was crazy to me. But so I mean, I don't think he'll be here in the next 2 to 3. But here it might be like a Chris Webber situation. I remember Chris Webber came to the Pistons late in his career. He was pretty much washed up at that point, but I think he just wanted to come home. I think that's going to be Devin Booker.
I would take like a 35-year-old Devin Booker who's like a bucket off the bench, just like Jamal Crawford, like because his shot's never gonna go anywhere. It's just I guess like his athleticism and all that. But I mean, he's 26 years old. Cade Cunningham's 22 years old. Devin Booker is a much better fit next to Cade Cunningham than Jaden Ivey. And I mean, that's not saying a whole lot. I mean, Devin Booker is a much better player than Jaden Ivey. Is that going to be the case 5 years from now? Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. But I mean, man, him and Cade, like the shooter next to Cade, that's exactly what you want. And I'm not saying Jaden Ivey isn't a shooter, but right. I don't like Jaden Ivey's not I wouldn't say he's a sharp shooter. Like Jaden Ivey feels like a guy who is going to get the ball in his hands and drive to the basket and get a majority of his points that way. I don't think Jaden Ivey is going to be known for his 3-point shot like Devin Booker is.
I wouldn't put my money on that.
No, but I don't know. It's a fun conversation to have. I mean, some people are saying it's going to happen. I wouldn't go that far. And I think we're at the point where we don't need it to happen too. Like Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey we're gonna be fine with those two. Like we don't need Devin Booker to come here and save this franchise.
I wouldn't be opposed to Devin Booker coming here soon. It's just I don't want to set my expectations too high because I don't want to get let down. But B, how realistic is it? I mean, to get Devin Booker. All right, so I mean, okay, free agency when his contract is up, what's the chances of him going to Detroit? Unless things just go completely terrible in Phoenix, what's the chances of him coming to Detroit? And then the second thing is, all right, let's say we trade for him. What are you going to give up? What trade pieces do we really have to get a Devin Booker?
So I would say Jaden Ivey, Asar Thompson, and picks.
I was going to say, you're going to have to throw a whole lot of picks in there.
I mean,
Ivy's got to be in there.
Yeah. If I'm the Suns, I'm getting Ivy and Asar Thompson. I think that's a pretty good return, honestly. But yeah, definitely a couple first-round picks, I would assume too.
Yeah, they going that you're gonna have to give up a lot, which Devin Booker deservingly, that's what it should be.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm pretty content with what we have, but it's funny you brought up expectations. That's another thing I wanted to touch on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have high expectations for this team, RJ. And like you said, like Devin Booker, you don't want to get your hopes up. I'm at the point with the Pistons where I'm tired of getting my hopes up, RJ. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I've been a fan since 2014, and it's just been nothing but one winning season and 2 playoff appearances where they got swept. But I'm not buying, like, and I understand the Lions hype, right? Because they showed you something last year where it's like, okay, I can buy into this now because they
Right.
finished the season so strong. With the Pistons, it's like they were the worst team in the NBA last year
Yeah.
by a decent margin. And like, I understand they got Cade back, but it's like, my expectations are pretty low this season, honestly. I'm not one of those people that are like the Pistons are going to be a play-in team or none of that, because it's like for that to happen, realistically, they need to make a 20 to 25 win improvement from last year to be a play-in team. So in terms of like expectations, I mean, we're only 2 weeks away from the season, which is crazy. Um, I don't know, RJ. My expectations are pretty low. I'm tired of getting my hopes up for this team and then just being constantly let down. So I don't know. I can't have high expectations for this team right now.
I mean, we on the same page, my man. You already know how I feel about it. Like last year, I had season tickets, so it was my first time getting season tickets, and this is probably gonna be my last time for a while because it was just so many losses, man. Like it got depressing. Like I was going to games, and I was the type I would never leave a game early. It didn't matter how bad the blowout was. Last year, man, I left so many games early. It was so many games I was half paying attention to. Like I would just go walk the concourse area. Like last year was bad, man. And like you said, I know we got K back, and that was a big part of why we were so bad last year. You lost your star player, whatnot, and if you have him, a lot of those close losses might turn into some wins. But yeah, just after last year, my expectations are not high. I mean, I keep telling people we got to at least start off with winning 20 games because you didn't even do that last year. You didn't even win 20 games last year. So you got to at least win me 20 games this year. So that's not asking for much. I feel
That's 20 games is probably the worst team in the NBA, man. Like
exactly.
that's the
So
bar. The bar is to be the worst team in the NBA. Like
no, like I'm telling you, it was so bad last year. I'm not expecting much. I know we got a SAR now. We got K back, and then if you look at things, we really didn't change our roster. We really didn't. I mean, you pretty much are relying on a healthy K Cunningham to return and keep growing his game, and the rest of our young guys to keep developing. You're really relying on the young players to have great developments between last season and this year. So that's really all we hoping on. I'm like, with that being said, if we finish 12th place, I guess that's a success because I'm not expecting much more higher than that at this point.
realistically, we should expect them to make the play-in. If we're being like, you look at a team like the Indiana Pacers, right? Look at their rebuild. Like their rebuild was what, a year and a half. They won like 35 games last year. Like this Pistons rebuild is now in year 4. And the fact that we're
Mhm.
sitting here talking about 20, 25 wins, I think it just says a lot of the state about this franchise right now. And like that should not be the expectation. I mean, we're in year 4 of Troy Weaver.
Psh,
The expectation should be the play-in, but it's just not. And I think that just says a lot about how bad this team has really been, honestly.
it's bad. I mean, when we got Cade, had you said we were still in this boat going into the 2023-24 season, a lot of folks would have looked at you crazy, but that's honestly where we're at right now. So it's just I don't want to blame Troy altogether. He had a rough roster to take in, and it's not easy. You know that what they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. So I'm trying to look at it from that standpoint because I get it. Like the roster was bad and it's still bad. So I'm not expecting much, but at some point things got to start coming together. You've had a fair share of draft picks now. Some have hit, some have missed. Sadiq's already out of town. Who knows how long Killian and Stu are going to be here? So Livers is another draft pick that I think this might be his last year. So I don't know, man. Something's got to give at some point.
It's just it gets to the point where I think there's two types of people. It's like the Cade injury. That's their reasoning for why the Pistons are, and that's their way of defending this team is Cade was injured. And then
Mhm.
there's the other people that are like, yes, but they also won 17 games. which goes to talk about the roster around him. So it's really like I agree with you. They didn't do much this offseason. Like this offseason, we were talking about guys like Kyle Kuzma and Jeremy Grant, and we got Joe Harris, and I mean I can't even think Monty Morris. Like
Mhm.
they didn't do a whole lot.
Yeah.
So it's really gonna be. I'm not saying it's all about Cade Cunningham, but that is what their bank like. That is the reason they won. They were supposed to win 35 games last year, and they won 17. So
Mhm.
like they have to win. I mean, I just feel like it's gonna be so dependent on Cade Cunningham because that's the only excuse Troy Weaver and the Pistons have. It's Cade wasn't healthy. That's all they have. Because
Yeah.
other than that, he put the worst, basketball team in the NBA on the court last year. So I feel like the excuse of not having Cade Cunningham is gone.
It
So
is.
now we're gonna see what they really are. And I think it's very fascinating. But like I don't know. I tend to be an optimist. I tend to be positive and get my hopes up, but I just can't right now for this team. And
I
that's not to say
understand that.
that's not to say they don't have young talent that
Mhm.
I'm excited about, and I think that could be really good. But I don't know. And it comes to the point where it's like if Cade Cunningham isn't an all NBA MVP level player, like we saw this roster without him, how bad it is. And I'm not like Jaden Ivey's obviously going to get better. Jalen Duren's going to get better, but it's like Cade Cunningham has to be him, or else I don't know how far this team realistically can even go.
Well, see, that's the good and bad news to it. I mean, the bad side is pretty obvious because if things don't work out, then yeah, this could get bad. But the good news is pre-injury, Cade was supposed to be him. Like Cade was projected to be, multi-time all-star in his career, face of the franchise. So if we get that Cade, and again, you improve on the win, we 25, 30 wins. I say that's a step in the right direction. It's not what we want. It's not what we expected at this point, but beggars can't be choosy sometimes. We just got to take what we could get right about now.
Yeah, and I wish the expectations were higher. Like I remember our media day, Isaiah Stewart said, like, you see the Lions and what they're doing, and that kind of
Mhm.
motivates you. I mean, I hope that's the case. I hope they see a team in the Detroit Lions, and it's like we want to be following in their footsteps and being the next young team on the rise. And I mean, if we're being honest, just as an NBA fan, I mean, we've seen so many teams that were so. I mean, remember how bad the Suns were for so long, and then they finally got out of the dumps. The Kings, I
Mhm.
mean, the Kings were the laughing stock of the league. They
Yeah.
were the third seed last year. I feel like every team has gotten their comeuppance except the Detroit Pistons, if I'm being honest. And maybe this will be the year. I'll believe it when I see it. I don't know. That's kind of my spiel. I didn't want to get into predictions. We didn't get into predictions, but we kind of just talked about the overall. Yeah, I don't
Extra
know
take.
that. I mean, what else can we really go over? We talked about the preseason. We talked about Devin Booker. We talked about expectations.
Mhm.
I mean, we could talk about the potential lineups, the roster battles. Who's going to be the backup, who's going to get the starting nod to end the show. But is there any other topics you wanted to go over?
I
I'm putting you
mean,
on the
now I'm
spot
following
here.
I'm following your lead. I mean, if you want to talk, I mean, position battles is still, again, it's only game one of preseason. So like your position battles, like Monte Morris versus Killian. Monte didn't play. Killian looked good, but there's still more preseason to be played. Wiseman versus Bagley. Wiseman, but Bagley played great. But again, it's 3 more games. So, and then we know what those guys can do in regular season too, which is why there's a battle to be had in the first place.
Yeah, what the one I'm looking at is the backup point guard. I think that's really interesting. Monte Morris is a good point guard, honestly. Like he was a starter in Washington. I know Washington wasn't a playoff team last year, but for him to be your backup and potentially even your third string if things go well with Killian, I think that's really, really good to have that because we saw like we were running Alec Burks at point guard last year. Like, so to
Yeah.
have that depth of Cade, if he goes down, well, now you have Killian. And I mean, Killian shouldn't have been starting games last year. He probably shouldn't be starting games this year. So now you have a guy in Monte Morris. So I think that's going to be a fun roster battle. I mean, just for a guy like Killian who's trying to prove himself, just to be able to get minutes. But I think that backcourt is really crowded, off the bench because you're going to have a guy like Killian, Monte Morris. Alec Burks, Marcus Sasser, Isaiah Livers, if
Mm-hmm.
he comes back. Like, there's a lot of guys that are going to be trying to get minutes, which I think is a good thing. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the starting lineup, I would say Cade, Ivy, Bojan Bogdanovic, Isaiah Stewart, and Jalen Duren. I think more than likely is going to be the starting lineup. Is there something I'm missing, or I that's my premonition. I don't know if you have different thoughts
Nah,
or.
I, nah. I will say there's a player I kind of want to keep an eye on this year because if he pops off, it could get dangerous. That's Joe Harris. I don't know
Joe
why,
Harris.
but I'm looking forward to seeing Joe Harris this year. I know
Okay.
he had the injuries, I think last year and the last 2 years or something like that. But like when he was on, like when he was in Brooklyn, again, this is years ago, but when he was popping, he was popping. So, hey, if Joe Harris gets going, he was one of the best shooters in the league at one point. That's why I'm like, and then we just talked about it earlier. Shooting don't go away sometimes. So if Joe Harris can pops off, that's the guy I'm watching out for. I'm not saying starting or anything like that. I don't want to put that high of expectations, but I'm saying he's going to be a nice player on a night basis.
Yeah, and this team definitely needs as much shooting as they can get. I don't know. A player I'm really interested is James Wiseman, just because he hasn't played that many games. If we're being honest, like this is really, I can look up, but I don't even think he's played 100 career NBA games yet.
Nah, I know on
And
the
like,
broadcast yesterday they said like 84 games. That's it. So
he's
he's only
played
played about a
yeah,
season.
that's crazy. And he's 22 years old, so he's the same age as Cade Cunningham. And like, I think he's obviously a couple years older than Jalen Duren, but I think he's just more developed. Like he has some sort of jump shot. Like his threes weren't falling, and he probably shouldn't have been taking them last year. But I mean, he has some sort of jump shot, and if he
Yeah.
continues to work on that, I don't know what to make of him. I don't really know if I consider him part of the core or not, because I believe he's going to be due for a rookie extension after this year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know how much you pay him. I mean, here's an interesting question: James
Okay.
Wiseman versus Isaiah Stewart. Like, who do you have more faith in moving forward? Isaiah Stewart, who got the extension, which I think he got paid a little too much, or James Wiseman? Because I think potential, like just raw potential, I think James Wiseman has a higher ceiling. But I don't know who out of those two players, who are you expecting to make a bigger long-term impact on the Detroit Pistons?
Kind of. I mean, like you said, when you bring up potential, I'm leaning towards Wiseman because of how hyped up he was coming out of college, and then the fact he's dealt with injuries. He, like we just said, he's only played about a full season game wise, so there's still a lot to be developed there and learned about him. But when it comes to Stu is pretty consistent with his game. Um, since he's been here, there's. I mean, I'm not worried about Stu. I know other people are, but Stu is gonna do what Stu is gonna do. Like I expect 10 points, 9 rebounds. Like that's a typical Stu night, and knowing that that's what I'm gonna get, I'm like, okay, not too crazy, but I know that's what I'm getting out of him. Versus Wiseman, you never know what you're gonna get. You might get a Wiseman that goes off. You might get a Wiseman that has 2 points. So if I had to put my trust in the player, I'm going towards Stu, but Wiseman definitely has more potential.
Yeah, here's my problem with Isaiah Stewart is like I don't know what he does for you. Like I know James Wiseman in a perfect world is going to protect the rim, is going to rebound, is going to be a lob threat, is going to finish at the basket. I mean, he even has some sort of like post game or hook game, but Isaiah Stewart, it's like if his threes aren't falling, I don't know what his role is for this team. So like I don't know, in a perfect world, like, but also the thing is like Jalen Duren and James Wiseman together on the floor, like I don't really know if that's gonna work just with the shooting and all that.
Nah.
So I don't know. I think it's gonna be a year where they're gonna figure some things out, but I think the front court is crowded and you
Mm-hmm.
have those four young big men, and I think that's why I'm out on Marvin Bagley, because I just think out of those four guys, he's the odd
Somebody got to
man
go.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, like someone's got to go, and like I don't know. It'll be really interesting. But he's in terms of like players we're gonna be watching. Obviously, we're all gonna be watching Cade, the young
Mm-hmm.
players, the core group of guys. But outside of that core group of guys, I think James Wiseman is kind of on the outside looking in. And like, I don't know, Sadiq Bey. I'm not saying Sadiq Bey. We're not going to regret. I mean, we could regret trading Sadiq Bey, but like Sadiq Bey was at least. I mean, he scored 51 points in an NBA game. Like, I feel like Sadiq Bey has potential to be something in the NBA. And to me, if you're going to trade that away and get nothing out of James Wiseman, like I feel like James Wiseman has to show something this year because like I was a pretty big fan of Sadiq Bey. I understand his shooting was very inconsistent and defensively he wasn't great, but I felt like Sadiq Bey has potential to be a rotation player on a championship team. And I don't know. I feel like they have to get something out of that, and that something is going to be James Wiseman.
I mean, shoosh, I got so many takes on that trade, and I don't even want to get into because that would be a whole another 10 minutes. But what I will say is, no, I agree. If you trade somebody like Sadiq Bey, um, who was loved by the fans, to be honest with you, I thought it was time to move on from him. I just wouldn't have made that trade. But okay, we got Wiseman now. And with Wiseman, again, like I said earlier, he was hyped up coming out of college. He was supposed to be this, franchise center for Golden State, you know. So they said Golden State traded him because he just didn't fit their timeline, which anybody could see. So now he's in a situation where he fits pretty much majority of the guys' timeline. So what is he gonna do? So this is his chance. I feel like this is James Wiseman's biggest season of his career by far. Like, skip all the other years. This the make or break year. Like, this is the year where we're gonna see is something there or is it not?
Yeah, and like I don't know. That's all I really have. Like, I wish there was more to talk about with this team. I'm usually pretty creative and I can come up with topics and stuff, but it's really we're at the point where it's just we're ready to see it on the court at
Mm-hmm.
this point. And we got to see a taste of that in
Yeah.
preseason, but we can't take much out of that. But yeah, I mean, it's looks like it's just going to be another prove it year for this team.
Mm-hmm.
And like comparing it to like I guess the Detroit Tigers, they are in a sense we're in a prove it year where they had a lot of unproven young talent, and I think the Pistons are in a similar boat.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't. It's going to be exciting. Like I said, I'm not getting my expectations up. Like if they can just be a somewhat competitive team, I'll take that. Um, but yeah, man, like we got one preseason game and
We
we
got
got
a
a
game
couple.
in.
Yeah, we got a game. That's really all we can go off of right now. Couple of weeks until the season starts. That'll be exciting. We'll have predictions, preview. If anyone thinks of any good topics that we could talk about, feel free to let us know. Um, yeah, man. Anything else that we haven't gone over? I knew this was going to be a quick podcast, but um, yeah. Anything else you got?
Nah, I got nothing other than just hope. We have,
Oh,
yeah. I'm honestly, yeah. Leave it at that. Hope. Just have hope. That's all you could do at this point.
yeah. I mean, I guess we can end the pod on like a hot take. I guess. Do you have any sort of hot take for this Pistons season? I mean, if it's like your hottest take, like if there's your list of takes, you probably don't want to give your hottest take right now. Maybe save it. But is there any prediction or any thought you have about any player or storyline we're going to be following for this season?
I mean, I kind of touched on Joe. Yeah, I touched on Joe Harris. Joe Harris, I think. I don't know why I've been having a gut feeling he might have a solid year with us, at least a consistent year. Um, Isaiah Livers, this is a make or break year for him. Uh, he's a guy that honestly I don't see much out of, and he gets hurt too much. I know some others are high on him, but I don't see it, and none against him as a person because he's a Michigan guy. But if we talk, I mean, it's business. We got to talk on the basketball court. And on the basketball court, I just don't see it. So that's my hot take. I think if things don't go well for Livers, this is it. And I'm not even talking Pistons. Like, his ceiling might be G League after this year. That's
I
my hot
guess,
take.
yeah, my hottest take, which it's not even hot, it's like piss warm, honestly.
Right.
Um, I don't think Cade Cunningham is going to be an all-star this year. I don't know if that's a hot take necessarily, but I think it's hard to be an all-star in the NBA. Like a lot of the
A
All-Stars are on
guard at
winning
that.
teams. Yeah. No, yeah, obviously. But like I feel like a lot of the All-Stars, and I think he's gonna put up All-Star numbers. I just don't think he's going to be
Nah,
recognized as an All-Star.
I
Which
wouldn't even put that on him. I don't see
yeah.
that at all.
But like other than that, like hot takes, like Jaden Ivey's gonna be a little better, I would assume. Jalen Duren's gonna be a little better.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's really. I mean, you hope Isaiah Stewart's a little better than he was last year. I'd say the same about Killian.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Asar Thompson is going to be exciting to watch. I think he's going to be starting by the end of the season, which I don't know if that's a good or bad thing.
Right.
Because they might just be so bad that they're just going to give him as many minutes as possible.
He can make all rookie team, all rookie first team for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised by that.
That's what I'm saying. There's only so many hot takes you can make with them right now, man.
I know. Like Bojan Bogdanovic, that's going to be a storyline to follow. Will they regret not trading him and waiting? Because I really hope they do trade him. I know he's like the veteran and he's a good guy to have around, but that's just a first pick. That's a first round pick waiting to happen. And I would like the Pistons to have as many first round picks as possible.
I don't think we getting the first out of Bogey, man.
Oh, really?
I just don't see it. I heard my sources, aka Twitter/X. I think I saw something where they said they like Troy Weaver asked like for first, and teams weren't really budging. So, and even from the outside looking in, I wouldn't necessarily expect the first out of Bojan. I think we should have traded him at last year's trade deadline, but now you've went to a whole new offseason and he's hurt now. Like we got to see how he comes off the injury. You know, at his age, a shooter at that, you have injuries in your legs that could, hurt your career at that point. So, yeah, I don't know, man. If he does what he did last year and averages dang near 20, then of course that's first round pick worthy or first, pick worthy as far as the trade. But I'm not gonna put my money on it. No.
Yeah, that could be a hot take in itself. Like if he is or isn't traded and what they get for him.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't give up much to get him. So I mean,
bag of
you have to
chips.
you have to give credit to Troy Weaver for that, but it's like I feel like they could have got a first round pick out of him, but that's a storyline to follow. Like Alec Burks probably not going to get much for him unless he's packaged with something. Or I mean, you've got Joe Harris. I don't know. I don't want to get into the whole Troy Weaver debate because I feel like I don't know. I want to stay positive on this podcast. And
I feel it.
Speaking of positive, because I think we could end this on this because it'll be fun. The Detroit Lions. So me and you like recorded. We talked about the Lions for a little bit. I think it was heading into the Kansas City Chiefs game.
Yeah.
And I've been watching, RJ. I have been watching. I've been watching highlights. I've been tuning in. I'm a big stats guy, but I don't understand football stats. I don't understand football stats. Like there's like pressures and like there's half sacks. Like how do you get half a sack? Like I feel like a sack is a sack. Like how do you get half a sack? Like
half a sack is when it's like two teammates sacking a quarterback at once.
So they're double teaming them.
No, literally, yeah. You pretty much split it.
Yeah, they're 4-1. I mean, I guess I was wrong about them. Like I didn't have a prediction by any means. Like they're probably gonna win the division. Yeah,
I think we got that locked already because I mean the Bears just won their first game. The Vikings only have one win. The Packers are about to play the Raiders in a minute. They're 2-2 right now, so it's like I think the Lions got the division like what week 5 into the season. That's crazy. I would have never guessed that. But nah, there's still a whole lot of season left. I did just read a graphic earlier that said the Lions have the 31st easiest schedule the rest of the way. And there's I'll say the Lions gonna probably be like 3rd place come into season.
Isn't that football? You get one first round bye, right? In the playoffs, there's 7.
They change it every year.
I know.
First seed definitely gets a bye. Second seed might. I know they used to at one point. I don't think they do anymore. third, yeah, you're playing. You're playing first week of the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not a big Lions guy, but I know you are, and I think we had a fun debate about it. Like I said, like I think it'd be funny if the Lions sucked. I still think it would, honestly. Like,
No, because I mean, I've seen so much with the Lions. There's so much season left. Like, I if things went left, it would be the most Lions thing of all time to happen. But they're just rolling so much. I don't even want to put that in the atmosphere.
no, I don't think that's gonna happen. No, that's not gonna happen. Like I think they're fine. I think they're
Yeah.
good. Like their defenses looked really good. That's my expert analysis. But I feel like they're always pressuring the quarterback, and like I think their run defense is like one of the best in the NFL. I don't know. Jared Goff is good. Yeah, the Lions are good. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson has got 4 interceptions in his first couple of years.
Yeah, he's looking like defensive player of the year. No joke.
Yeah, Lions are good.
He might really win it. I'll tell you what, with the Lions, I think it's just great that they finally believe in themselves. I think that's all it took. They just had to start believing in themselves. And now that they believe in themselves, they got the city that supports too. And I think, I mean, not even I think, I know Detroit, we were begging for a winner. It didn't matter who was going to be that first team out of our pro teams to, get out of that dump. It didn't matter who was going to be. The city was going to get behind whoever it was. Had it been the Red Wings, city's getting behind the Red Wings. Like, Detroit is a sports town, but we're even crazy when our teams are winning. Like, there's nothing like it.
So in terms of, like you said, getting out of the dump, when officially are they out of the dump? Like when
they
can
win a
we
playoff game, we're good. Shoot,
Okay,
you
so
make the
that's
playoffs, that's good. But if you win a playoff game, you're the first team that I feel like get out of that just darkness. At least you got some light now at that tunnel.
so if they go what is it, 12-5, let's say, and they win the division, and then they lay a goose egg in the first round and they lose, and let's say it's a pretty bad loss. They lose in the first round. That still they're out of the dumps, and like
if they were able to host a division game, I say you just got to take that for what it is at this point. Because the Lions haven't hosted a playoff game, definitely not in our lifetimes. I want to say like 30 years. So you got to take that for what it is. Because if you only had something happen in 30 years and you're able to do it, I don't care if it is a bad game. Hey, you did some history today. You got to take that.
Yeah, I guess I'm just looking at like Detroit sports as a whole and like how bad it's been, and like
it's bad, man.
Yeah, I guess officially like getting out of that hole, I feel like a successful playoff run, because like the Pistons made the playoffs a couple years ago,
Yeah,
and like they did nothing. So I feel like
they didn't
the
win a game.
Lions,
They got smacked every game.
So it's like I get football is different, but at the end of the day, like you make the playoffs and you don't do anything, like we've seen that happen just a couple years ago. So I feel like winning a playoff game, it would be Detroit's first playoff win since 2013, I think. So I think
it's been 10 years.
Yeah. So for everybody, it's going to be different. But for me, I think winning a playoff game, especially for football, because obviously a playoff win for football means a lot more than a playoff win in any other sport.
Because the other one's a series versus football is, it's one game.
So, but I don't know. I guess for me, it would be the Lions winning a playoff game or the other 3 teams winning a playoff series. Would probably be getting out of the dumps for me. Is a good way to put it.
That's not a bad take. Yeah. In fact, I'll go with that. For Detroit sense, yeah, but I still stick with it. For a Lions sense, just hosting a playoff game will be big because a lot of us Lions fans haven't even seen a home game for the playoffs. In fact, I was like in middle school. I don't know if I was that old. I was probably in elementary before I finally seen the Lions in the playoffs. Like I had seen Pistons and conference championships, and they won a championship in our lifetime. You got the Red Wings who've won, I think, 2 championships, and then the Tigers have been in multiple World Series, but the Lions were just always that team we never saw do anything. So I'm just looking forward to what they do, man. I hope the city needs somebody to get behind. It's looking like it's the Lions, so I hope they keep it going.
Yeah, I mean, it's been fun. We'll see what happens. Maybe we'll make this a reoccurring theme. We'll end the show with some Lions talk.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it'll be fun. But I don't know. Check out RJ on Buffed Up Sports, your
Yeah, man.
podcast. We talk boxing, NBA, basketball,
Yeah,
Lions.
yeah.
I would assume, right?
Yeah, gotta throw the Lions in there.
Yeah. Follow us on X or Twitter, all that good stuff, or don't. It's up to you guys. But yeah. Thank you to the Fans First Sports Network for, I guess partnering with our podcast so it gets
Mhm.
out to more people and more viewers. So we'll see how that goes for the season. But I don't know, RJ, it's going to be a fun, exciting season. I feel like you're going to be a pretty frequent guest on here. Mateo, Parker was on a few times last
Yeah, yeah, we
season.
had Parker.
I don't know. We'll try to get guests. We'll see what we can do, but it'll be fun. It'll be exciting, and obviously, as the season gets closer, we'll have more things to talk about. We'll have more overreactions and more hot takes because you know how basketball fans are.
Gotta have those.
Yeah. But thank you everybody for listening and or watching if you're on YouTube. Take care, everybody. And you know what? Before we get out of here, let me play the music just to get out of here. All right. Take care, everybody.